Hey, 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 what is going on, COD, my Call of Dragon Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and we're going to be talking about none other than what you guessed it, Call of Dragons, which is a new Kingdom Builder game from Farlight Games, and it is something that is probably going to be the brother-sister game to Rise of Kingdoms that some are defining it as, and I actually think from my view, and we're going to touch on some of what I feel are the standout points about the game, along with allowing for some videos to play through while we do talk. And I wanted to share my thoughts on why I think Call of Dragons has some potential, why I feel the game could be a standout amongst other kingdom builders within the genre, and then give you just my honest thoughts. Just in case anyone is wondering, I am always a fan of providing what I feel to be the important part, which is a resume, right? Something to kind of go along with why would you even care about anything that I have to say? Well, I have a lot of experience in Kingdom Builders. Here, I have a public resume on my Discord. I've been playing games since 2013, started out with a Game of War. Again, some notable Kingdom Builders I played: Art of Conquest, Lords Mobile, Rise of Kingdoms, Infinity Kingdom. Again, I've ran a lot of successful projects. I've never ran a project that did not have the highest percentage chances to be successful in its kingdom, pretty much having an 8-0 start when establishing control and majority presence within a kingdom. That ultimately means being able to have that where you are the biggest presence and there's really no one there that can, I guess, kind of stop you or compete. Even though that's not really the plan, more so to kind of go in and bully. It's really more to kind of work with people that are there. And so I've had a very successful time doing that based on preparation, structuring, organizing, going in with an actual plan, and having a good foundation as well. Some information on time I've spent in Rise of Kingdoms and Infinity Kingdom. Again, I'm really more of an aficionado of the genre itself, not necessarily a one game over another as an easier way to play it, right? Again, as long as the game has potential, if the graphics look good and it has some common denominator universal features, I can find success in any kingdom builder. And I just think it's important. There's a lot of, as I said, right, not to be super redundant, but there are a lot of common denominators that you're going to find in kingdom builders. So, but while we kind of chat and I go over what I think are some standout features, I'm just going to play a couple of the videos here. Unfortunately, we don't have access yet, and I guess I probably should full screen it. But I thought it still would be important to touch on some of these things. So one of the first ones here is going to be that they have what I think is a very realistic looking map. There's a couple other games that I've played before. There's a game called Game of Legends, which recently rebranded to World of Asteria. There are actually some similarities here in this game where you have these kind of PvE outposts. There's mini games where if you go out and you send your march to an area, and we'll show that I believe in the next video, where you go there, you get close enough, and then you're doing kind of a mini interactive game. I love those types of things. I think where you kind of are adding in some of these RPG elements into the Kingdom Builder genre, it's really creating a very fresh take on the scene. And I think that is something to look forward to in the game because it gives you more to do on the map, right? It's not just I'm going to move my unit to go and attack this PvE or this PvE boss. I'm actually moving my unit to go and do something, right? To interact, to engage in a way. And I thought that was really cool with the idea behind it. Even here in this screen, right? Even here in this video, I guess screen grab or pause, you can see kind of what a big battle looks like. And you're seeing air units, you're seeing rangers. Again, we'll touch on that in a bit. But there are a few things, and obviously with the dragon, their skills. I mean, again, there's a lot I think is going for the game when you're looking at it at face value. Of course, we're going to have to wait until we get into the game and actually see how some of these things are playing out. But I do think that there is potential for what we are going to be seeing in the game. And here's something, right? So they're kind of introducing the dev here, or I should just say one of the employees here for Call of Dragons. And there's a couple things that I think is really important that they touch on here. And we're going to kind of walk through these one by one, right? They're now starting off with why they're really enjoying the fantasy theme, kind of doing some of those comparisons from RoK to what we're seeing now. And again, right, deeply engaging in your realistic fantasy world. And they make the reference here from Rise of Kingdoms, with recreating kind of a realistic wide-scale multi-civilization battleground. Awesome. And here's one of the kickers I really thought was cool that's coming up right now, right? They wanted to make this realistic large map. And they're going to quote a number here in a moment that I thought was really interesting, right? So we'll pause. 3.88 million square kilometer map. This map is huge. If I look at this map, and again, from just how it looks, to me, this looks bigger than a RoK map. Right now, I don't know how big a RoK map is, but if I was to look at a home kingdom map on an overview for RoK, and I looked at this to me looks a lot bigger. That I actually think is pretty cool because there's more to do, right? When you think about a RoK map, it's 3 rings. You have an outer. You have a zone 1, which is your outer ring, a middle ring for your zone 2, and then a zone 3 in the middle. Instead, they kind of opted to go with almost more of like a Lord of the Rings map, right? For any of you guys who ever played like Lord of the Rings Risk, gosh, I love that game. But point is that it's something that's diverse. There's different terrain. There's height advantages. There's choke points. There's funnels. I mean, it is, again, just from some of what I've seen so far, really just what I think brings a very fresh take and a very fresh perspective to the genre. Again, they're touching on terrain diversity, right, with the hill, the streams, desert, mountain peaks, right? Again, different ranges as well that you're seeing them mentioning canyons. There's going to be I want to say this is the mini game that's going to be coming up. This is one of the things I mentioned before. I actually think this is pretty cool, and they're going to get to it here in a moment. And it goes back to what I was saying before, where you're actually having a unit where you're going to move the unit around the map in an interactive way, so you can actually go and do something with it. It's not just, right, so you see this village. It says you can go into the village and play a game with the villagers. Right now, again, I'm saying that you're going to move the unit there. Maybe it's really as simple as you just click it and then it goes into it. But it would be really cool if they had it set up where you're actually going in with your unit, right? Where maybe you have to move the unit there and get within a certain distance. And there was another screen that was in one of I think the previous video we saw where you walked up to a village or something the unit did. Or maybe it was just a random PvE. But again, it would be cool if that was the case, right? And I like how they have these just mini games that you get to do on the map. I think that's something that's very interactive. And then after that, they kind of talk about some of the storylines, right? For the future, in the future, each season will be a continuation of the main plot line. So you're going to kind of have this consistent storyline that will be continuing, even though you're going to be having seasonal resets that we've seen so far. And that, I think, is something where at least you're moving forward in that idea. And then we have here where you're kind of looking at what seems to be towers. You have some ranged units. And this, to me, I think is really cool. And I want to just briefly talk about why I think this is important when you are looking at the type of air units and the ranged units. This really gives you more of that type of triangular counter system that is typically more common in what we would refer to as like pure RTS games. So you're thinking about StarCraft, you're thinking about Warcraft, you're thinking about Command and Conquer, you're thinking about Age of Empires, right? You're thinking about just top-notch RTS games where you have this kind of basic countering system. And I love the fact that they've thrown in ranged and air, which, again, you're looking at having that in an actual kingdom builder with open field, which is what we have here as well. That, to me, I think is just going to expand so many different kind of war tactics and creative opportunities. Again, it's something I think a good amount of players have really been wanting, especially if you look at RoK players. And I do. I actually just think we'll have to see how it plays out and what's the viability. Is it lagging? Is it not? Are you still able to have those large-scale fights with a lot of players condensed, right? Because that's always going to be a thing. Having to try and solve for that lag where you have 150, 150, 200 players all kind of in the same area battling it out like we saw in the first video. So just some things to keep in mind. Then we end up getting, right, and this is cool, right, the rivers, right, you can't have the close range, but you can have some of the ranged or the flying units go across. So again, right, and they kind of talk about that, adding aerial and range battle units. And then, let me see here, I'm going to have to go forward because there was something I wanted to show, and I think it's going to be on this next one here. Okay, here we go. So this is something that you can see where they say they're called artifact skills, right? So these are kind of battlefield skills. This to me is pretty cool. I like the idea of that you can use skills on a battlefield to where it adds another layer of strategy and tactics where you can teleport behind someone, you can slow someone down, you can block them off from a certain route, right? Very similar, and again, to not kind of beat the dead horse, but in StarCraft 2, I believe I'm forgetting, but it was kind of like the high-tech alien race, and I feel so bad that it's not the Terrans and it's not the Zerg, it's the other one, and I'm forgetting right now what they're called. But they had this bubble skill where you could basically wall off a section of units, and instead of fighting a big army, you cut them off in half, you have your army kill half the army with the numbers advantages, then you kind of move on to the next half, right? So you create smaller battles in a sense, is one way to use the skill. And I kind of like the idea of being able to do that in game where you can chain skills, maybe combo skills in that sense where you're kind of using them back to back. Maybe you have different types of skills where you use one first, another second, another third. Again, I think the idea of being creative and allowing for that creativity to flow by just trying something. And what's interesting is that, you look at it and on one side you have Rise of Kingdoms and on the other side you have Call of Dragons, and sure, they're both kingdom builders, but the way that they're approaching the genre is almost kind of in a night and day way when you think about a lot of the differences, right? They're almost what it feels like going for home runs by really trying to pioneer some new things when it comes to features or in-game and or in-game mechanics. And some of these things are what RoK players have been asking for a while. So, it's curious to me because it makes me wonder, right? Are they doing it because they needed to build something from the ground up because it would be very difficult to kind of add on or take longer to do it in a game that's already existing rather than building something from scratch? So that I think is interesting. I'd love to hear your guys' comments on that below. Just kind of a random thought. And then you have the what's going to be the bosses. And you're going to see here, they should be talking about, right on cue, mega bosses. And if you go in and you attack the bosses, and this is pretty cool, I just wanted to touch on this real quick. I like this because, and I'll tell you why, it really gives me more of these kind of RPG boss elements where it just looks cleaner, right? When you're going in, you don't really have, for all intensive purposes, you don't really have kind of an interactive boss unit in RoK. And at least on the Home Kingdom PvP map, and I don't even think on the KVK map now that I think about it. Now you have forts and you have kind of interactive stations, if you will. Kind of like like a barb camp or something. But nothing that is kind of a singular boss unit that really kind of, emulates that kind of RPG boss feel. And that's something that I think is really cool and different. And then, right, it says you attack the boss, you get prizes, and then, the bosses, as they say, can be summoned as allies. And you can see here, let me go back because they did show some of the stats there as they're zooming out. So let's see if we can get a little sneak peek here on that. If we just do it, so we pause, right? And you can see summon. They have skills and passives. They have attack. This is just a level 10, so who knows if it's max or not. HP, power. This looks like maybe battle duration. Movement very fast. It has defense. So again, and obviously it looks like what seems to be summoning stones or to upgrade the skills most likely. But this is cool, right? You defeat a boss, you could summon it in battle, kind of like having a pet in an RPG game, I guess. But I thought this was cool. Now here we kind of get to some of the more interesting things when it comes to the actual in-game mechanics, right? Them talking about lowering the cost of training soldiers, decreased losses to injured soldiers, right? So you're able to train, I guess, more / faster. Again, I think it just depends on most of the time you're gathering more resources than it's really going to cost. So you're just saving some resources here. I think it'd be different if they said, oh yeah, well, we're adding in things to help you increase the training speed. But again, right, you're going to take what you get, decrease losses to injured soldiers. So that, in short, also means you'll be able to potentially fight longer and have less soldiers that die. So, maybe that garners you a couple extra marches. Them mentioning something here like increasing storage capacity. So if you receive, as they say, critical damage, right, you can still use kind of resource reserves. So increasing your storehouse, right, or your warehouse in that sense. Then I think one of the other things they talk about here is roads, and they talk about barricades. And what seems to be for this, I'm not sure if the barricade is actually going to be a unique or a skill, a battlefield skill as they call them. And then the roads they mention with those is that you're going to be able to move faster on roads, right? So if you build roads, depending on how that process actually works, but they do talk about it, right? We've added barricading, garrisoning of fortifications, and road construction to battles. And so they say that your units are going to move faster, so if you need to get to a fight faster, you'll be able to do that. They kind of just talk a little bit about here about kind of having front back lines. You can see here on what maybe that's them going through a friendly barricade. You can see their haste, which kind of looks like they're moving a little bit faster there on the road. So again, I think that's really interesting. And maybe the barricades are pre-placed compared to what we saw. Maybe we'll see here in one of the future videos. But again, I think it's interesting where they're kind of going with the close range, outer range dynamic. Don't really talk too much here about this, but I do want to show this one because this video touches a little bit. I'm going to have to scroll a bit farther here. Here we go. So we'll get here, and there's a specific scene I thought was really interesting. I just have to find it. Might be a little bit farther here. Oh yeah, see, I thought this was pretty cool, right? So you actually get to kind of see a little bit of the beast coming in and just doing, massive damage. Maybe the beast is something where you're kind of using those in a way where you're supporting it in a sense. And who knows how the commanders, right, are going to work out too, right? Maybe you could do something like chain healing. Maybe you would throw in more of a tank and then you go more heavy ranged in the back. I mean, again, it's just so many different tactics that you can apply that I think are really interesting. Here you're kind of seeing another boss that, again, they just having different. So, I think the idea of kiting and having to kind of micro your marches a little bit more is cool. So, it's not just you just go up there and you assume you're just going to kill everything. I like the idea of that. Here, kind of a bigger fight where you can see some of the ranged here on the outside perimeter. Again, the game overall to me, just looks clean, in short. And I think that's something I'm excited for. And I hope, at least so far, you guys have enjoyed a little bit of the look. One of the things I want to show off, because this is just kind of some of the map. And you can see some heroes and some units and behemoths, and then I think this is like the wonders that they have. But I wanted to touch on this. This is just a small little screen. It'll only take about a minute. But it says like strategy with freedom and depth, right? It tells you building towers, sending out long-range precision strikes, where I'm imagining this is probably some kind of skill, if that's the case. Right, exploring the world, right? It tells you things such as charming villages, caverns, wonders, unique, utilize skills and teamwork to win epic battles, right? Having different gear, working, as it says here, with abilities, right, in battle. And then kind of teaming up, right, where you can build garrisons, barricades, build roads to speed up your troops, assemble alliance armies, and go to war. It's, again, I think the one thing that I'll say lastly is the game itself really kind of gives me those same early jitters that Infinity Kingdom did. For those of you that played that, I was the first CC to come on for Infinity Kingdom. I started playing it, I think, a little after Season 4 dropped, which was about halfway through beta. And I absolutely just loved the game. I thought graphically the game was on par for what my standards are when I'm looking to play a game. One of the most important things is the game has to be graphically appealing. It just does. And doesn't matter how, to me at least, doesn't matter how good your features are. If it doesn't look good, then you could have the best features. I'm just still not going to play it. And I think Call of Dragons, very similarly to when I first found out about Rise of Kingdoms, even Art of Conquest back then, and then when I first found out about Infinity Kingdom, and now kind of first seeing Call of Dragons, the game itself is interesting enough at first glance and visually where I can say to myself confidently, I'm going to try this game out. I'm going to play this game. I'm going to see how it is. And that's, I think, some of the interesting things that I find different about this game, kind of going through the video. I know we're pretty much almost at a little over 20 minutes now. But I hope you enjoyed my take on talking through the game, sharing my experiences, giving what I hope is a different POV on the game that might get you interested into it. With that being said, I will have a link in the description for anyone who wants to come on the main website, so you can go ahead and pre-register. I'll have a link to the Discord as well. And of course, if you enjoy the content at this point, which I can't believe I forgot to say it, as always, you guys can sub, like, ring the notification bell, and if you want to join to be a part of our conversation, you can hit up our Discord. A link to that will also be in the pinned comment description down below. That is it for me. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on my take for Call of Dragons. Let me know in the comments down below. That's it for me. Until next time, I'll catch you later.